Hi everyone, welcome to Writer's Corner. I'm Radrani and I'm from Tilsley Creative Writers. And those of you who've been following my recent videos will know that I'll be reading chapters from this book. Lessons from the Ramayana by Sri Child Sachinamurti. And in today's video I'll be reading lesson 15 and I hope you like it. So here we go. Lesson 15. Understand the principles of democracy observed in the Ramayana. Public opinion, a vulgar, impertinent, anonymous tyrant who deliberately makes life unpleasant for anyone who is not content to be the average man. By Dean William Ralph Ing. In ancient India, kings were not elected by the people. Crown passed from the father to the son as a matter of inheritance. The people were taken for granted. They had little say in the administrations. So by our present standards of democracy, it was not democracy when the kings ruled. It was despotism. Sometimes benevolent despots ruled. The people generally prefer an able and good man who can show them what is good for them. They feel that they are far below their leader or king, who is well versed in the art of rulership. Hence, they acquiesce in the superior wisdom of the ruler. The absolute obedience or loyalty should not be mistaken for slavery. Slavery smacks of fear and feeling of shame. Loyalty savours of respect and understanding of the greatness and goodness of the leader or ruler. The willing obedience and loyalty of the ruler will be good as long as the ruler has high standards of intelligence, morality, and spirit of service. When these virtues decline in the ruler with too much attachment to luxuries and pleasures, people naturally show their resentment to be under his rule. Then the unworthy ruler becomes a supercilious tyrant who swoops down upon the people with overbearing demeanour. It is well known to us how a tyrant has his tragic end sooner or later. Thus the problem of democracy is to get rid of a tyrant. Democracy has to invest the common people with the elements of kingship. The success of democracy depends upon the enlightenment of the common man, who has the power to choose the ruler. The education of the people, their intelligent participation, and the dedicated leaders are the essential factors for the success of democracy. The deadliest foe of democracy is liberty frenzied. When people develop mob mentality and yield place to mob fury, which creates chaos, democracy dies. A dictator will arise out of chaos. Liberty well restrained, leadership well dedicated, and human resources well utilized make democracy flourish. In the Ramayana, we observe democratic principles, though the king was not elected by the people. The kings follow the will of the people, and their selfless service and dedication to duty are transparent. They give no scope for criticism and bow to public opinion. Dasharatha wishes to crown Rama king. He has decided to crown him, but he does not announce it outright. He invites all the prominent citizens who roughly represent the people and holds a meeting. It is just like Parliament of today. In that assembly, he makes a speech thus: I am old and wearied after long years of ruleship. I desire to put the burden of rulership on young shoulders. I need your approval for that. What is your opinion about Rama, my eldest son? Do you like him to be crowned? I wish to know your answer. The assembly as one man enthusiastically conveys its approval. They feel elated with joy. Their overwhelming support pleases the old king. Then he asks them to tell him why they prefer Rama's rule. He says, What are Rama's virtues that make you so ecstatic in welcoming his rule? Dasratha is in raptures as he hears the words of the citizens thus. My lord, the Prince Rama sits high in our hearts. He is charming. A king is one who charms the subjects and wins their love. Rama has done that in an abundant measure. He would first smile and then talk. His smile expresses his concern for our welfare. His benevolent looks, his charming smile, and his readiness to relieve the sufferings of those who look to him for succor exercise a pull on our hearts. Even the humblest being on the streets shares his smile as he moves about in his chariot. He is not partial to anyone in conferring his favours. He is as great as a rain-laden cloud who rains favours on one and all. Those who look at his face do not fall into error in their life. None can speak an untruth to his face. Even the worst sinner makes a clean breast of his guilt in his presence and turns a new leaf in his life. Such is the force of his goodness. His heart is full of mercy. His talk is full of nectar. His glances are full of benevolence. His personality is awe-inspiring. His valour is terror-striking. His magnetism, his dynamism, and his circumspection are unique. As a ruler, he knows well what we need. We need not tell him what we want. He gives us what we want even without our asking him. He sees the evil in the heart of an evildoer even before the crime takes place and reprimands him. His reprimand makes him pious and good. Such is his healing touch. He is too near and too distant at one and the same time, so none can take liberties with him, nor does he despair of his loving touch. He is familiar with everyone, knows every man's problem, cures every man of his mental agony, and yet not too close to be idle company. Rama is angry with wickedness, but not with the wicked man. He kills wickedness, and the man emerges pure and pious. He is firm in his path of righteousness. Nothing can swerve him from dharma, righteous conduct. He is truthful. He never goes back on his promise. He gives special respect to the old, the wise, and the learned. He removes hurdles in the way of their smooth and happy life. The rishis and sages ever like to visit him and drink of his beauty with their eyes. Rama learns in a humble way from the sages like Vashishta and shows to the world how a student should be obedient to the Guru. Prince Rama is never idle, nor does he go in for revelry. He is always engaged in useful work. Here he animatedly participates in philosophical discourses in the company of sages headed by Vashishta. There he discusses military strategy in the gathering of commanders. At one time he gives suggestions to the ministers who explain to him the measures taken to wring out poverty and ring in plenty. At another time he is seen to be ordering patronage to poets, writers, and artists. We feel that under his rule the world overflows with milk and honey, and the celestial beings wish to be citizens of Ayodhya. Dasratha is beside himself with joy and pride as he hears the outpourings in praise of Rama. He declares in a very happy frame of mind that Rama will be crowned the very next day and orders all arrangements to be made for the coronation. The present-day leaders and politicians had better take a leaf out of Rama's book in the matter of righteous conduct to win the love and admiration of the people. The taller a politician is, the more exacting are the norms he is expected to uphold. Even the slightest lapse may besmirch their reputation. Generally, every leader endeavours with his utmost care to be never seen doing anything wrong, unworthy of a leader. Rama's example must so chasten them as to take care to be seen never doing anything wrong, unworthy of a leader. Bharata goes to the forest to bring back Rama to Ayodhya as king. But Rama is firm, and he would not budge an inch from his decision to spend 14 years in the forest as per the king's promise to Kaikeyi. Then Bharata appeals to the people thus: O citizens, it is your responsibility to have the rightful heir on the throne. You have every right to oppose injustice. Why do you keep mum when great injustice is done? Your word ought to prevail. So all of you appeal to Rama's sense of justice and duty to people. These words of Bharata bear the principle of democracy. In a democracy, people make a hue and cry if the rulers go wrong. The rulers are brought to their knees by the persistent appeals from the people. We also find the principle of democracy when people surround Sugriva and appeal to him to accept the crown, as Vali is supposed to be killed in the cave in his fight with a demon. They say to Sugriva thus: O Sugriva, your brother Vali has not returned from the cave. Our reason tells us that he might have been killed by the enemy. Now the kingdom is without a king. It is a duty of the people to choose a ruler and crown him for their safety. If there is no king, robbers, thieves, and miscreants flourish. You must accept the crown and prevent chaos. If Vali happens to come, you can return the kingdom to him. No sin attaches you, as we give you our approval to rule us in the absence of the lawful king. Sugriva bows to the decision of the subjects, and he is then anointed king. In democratic countries, we often see ministers or those holding elected posts resign their posts when assailed by scandals, or when some mishap occurs. A minister may resign, owning moral responsibility. Here, they react to public opinion. When public opinion accuses a public figure, he demits office gracefully and saves his face. This is a healthy trait of democracy. In the Ramayana, we find this bowing to public opinion in a shocking manner. The king sends spies to every nook and corner to gather information about the people, their troubles, their views, and their secret shortcomings. These spies move about incognito. One night in a house, a man is found to be punishing his wife for her faithlessness. He asks her to go away from his house as he abandons her. In an outburst of anger, he bawls out, "You wretched wench! Where were you last night? Do you expect me to welcome you? You are no more worthy of being in my house as a respectable housewife. There is a slur on your character. I kick you out." A king may welcome his wife to his bosom without caring for a slur on her. Sita was in Ashoka garden of Ravana. The King Rama, lured by her charms, did not pause to think of propriety while bringing her back to the palace. I am not a fool to follow his example. This is a horrible piece of information to be carried to Rama. Yet the spies have to do their duty. Somehow, in a hesitant tone and halting gasps, they convey to Lord Rama the words of the rustic. A lesser man would have sentenced that rustic to death, but Rama takes it as a valid public opinion. A king should not be actuated by his self-interest. He should have in his heart only the interest of the people. Bhishma, while he was lying on the bed of arrows in the battlefield, taught Dharmaraja the rules of conduct for a king. One of the points was that a king should not have a will of his own. He should obey only the will of the people. It is a great principle of democracy. But Rama here does not pause to think whether the mad words of a low-bred wretch would constitute general public opinion. He decides to bow to those words, treating them as public opinion. When a lady is pregnant, it is customary to grant her desires. The husband asks her what she wants to have. He supplies the things which she desires to have. Lord Rama says to Sita thus, "My dear, I recall to my mind the words you said while we were coming to Ayodhya after our marriage at Mithila. I asked you about your tastes and hobbies. You, in a playful mood, said you would like to reside in the ashramas of rishis in the midst of beauties of nature. Do you still have such a desire?" Sita smiles pleasantly and says, "I no doubt like the holy atmosphere of ashramas surrounded by the beauty of gardens, but I do not wish to be wrenched from your company. All joys flow to me when you are by my side. But I wonder why you asked me this question." Rama, in an unusually pensive mood, leaves the place. The next day, Lakshmana approaches Sita. He takes pains to suppress his anguish and agony. He puts on the veil of normal mood and says, "Mother Sita, my Lord Rama has asked me to take you to the ashrama in the forest. Perhaps you may like to stay there and enjoy the calm and serene atmosphere. It is my brother's order. Please obey." Sita thinks that she is going to in the royal chariot for a sightseeing. Lakshmana drives the chariot. Sita sits alone in the chariot. She wonders why Lakshmana keeps mum, why cheer is absent in his face, and why there is not the usual smile on his lips. She suspects something wrong. She fixes her mind on Lord Rama and begins to enjoy spiritual bliss. She thus gets over the depression that creeps in. They reach the destination. Lakshmana gets down from the chariot. He helps Sita get down. He is trying to hide his face from Sita. The veil wavers. His tear-stained face with melancholy writ large on it is revealed to Sita. She says to Lakshmana, "Lakshmana, you are like a son to me. Your face tells me that you are hiding a terrible truth. I am hardened enough to hear any sentence. Please be brave and tell me why your brother ordered you to bring me here." Lakshmana bursts into tears anew. His grief is inconsolable. He cries like a helpless child. With sobs intervening, Lakshmana says, "Mother, what shall I say? I am singled out by fate to bear heart-rending grief in carrying out the orders of my Lord Rama. He has asked me to leave you in the forest near the ashramas of rishis. You, a pious lady, chaste and pure, an ornament of womanhood." "Lakshmana, that is enough," says Sita. "Yesterday itself I could smell the idea of your brother. He is noble, generous, and merciful. None is more concerned about me than he. His love for me is beyond words. When he himself is obliged to abandon me, there must be some strong reason. I do not like to pain you by pressing you to tell me the reason. Whatever may be the reason for the sentence, I must bow to it. Tell your brother that I convey my salutations to him. I understand what gnawing grief he is now undergoing because of his separation from me. Please tell him not to give in to unavailing grief. I carry in me his replica. I must take care of that child till he becomes big enough to meet his father. That duty keeps me alive despite my separation from my Lord." Lakshmana prostrates himself before Sita again and again. Sita blesses him. Lakshmana leaves the place in heartbroken grief. He sits in the chariot and drags himself to Ayodhya. The news of Sita's exile into the forest spreads like wildfire. The people begin to weep and cry. Crowds are seen on the streets. They shout slogans. Sita is chaste. Rama should bring back Sita. They rush to the fellow menacingly, the fellow who is the cause for Sita's exile. That fellow with his wife has disappeared. The people make inquiries about that miscreant. At last they gather information about him. The people organize themselves well to represent the matter to Lord Rama. They all in a body go to Rama. They ask Sumantra to speak on their behalf, while a large number of people gather there. A huge crowd, a multitude, a sea of humanity is before the palace gates. Rama appears on the terrace, visible to the crowds. Sumantra submits to the king thus: My lord, this huge gathering of people, like one voice, compel your listening to their grievance. The woman and her husband, whose ravings are taken as genuine public opinion on which you have acted, are the surviving myrmidons of Ravana. They are not the citizens of Ayodhya, where great kings of Raghu's line reign. They came here in the disguise of ordinary workers and uttered nonsense in the hearing of royal spies. This news reached the ears of the noble king Vibhishana, who traced them and executed them. They thus have suffered for their sins. We, the citizens of Ayodhya, appeal to you to bring back to the palace Sita, our queen. Ayodhya is desolate without Sita. You are large-hearted and magnanimous. You set store by the general will of the people. Our prayer is that you may be pleased to lift the order of exile on our queen and see that Ayodhya becomes glorious again with her gracious presence. At this stage, to support the plea of the people, a heavenly voice utters the following authentic words: O noble Lord Rama, the people are genuine in their wish and prayer. They have great respect for Queen Sita, who is chaste and pious. She is now in the ashrama of Valmiki. She gave birth to twins. The sage named them Lava and Kusa. They are extremely beautiful. Sita is now a mother, bent on doing the duties of a mother. Her concern now is to rear them and educate them, though she ever thinks of you, your glory and your love. The sage Valmiki takes upon himself the duty of equipping the children with all the skills and virtues worthy of noble princes. Here, a word about education of children needs mention. Education begins even when the child is in the mother's womb before birth. A lady, while she is pregnant, must be in a holy atmosphere. She must hear good words, cheering, pleasing, and ennobling. She must spend her time in seeing gentle and soul-stirring scenes of beauty, virtue, and universal benevolence. She must be a stranger to idle and frivolous talk, or scenes of envy, anger, and cruelty. These things are possible only in the holy ashramas of sages. Prahalada's mother, when she was pregnant in the ashrama of the celestial sage Narada. Narada was the educator of the unborn child Prahalada. He told the mother the sacred stories of Lord Vishnu and explained the principles of bhakti, devotion, keeping in view the child inside. Thus, Prahalada's greatness is traceable to early stay and education in the ashrama of sage Narada. Similar is the fortune of Lava and Kusa, to be brought up in the ashrama of the sage Valmiki. Valmiki has taught them the story of Rama. The twins have a melodious voice. They are able to melt the stones with their melody. As they sing the praises of Lord Rama, people lose themselves in joy. The sage Valmiki does not neglect to teach them martial skills. He has taught them to use the divine astras. He has made them balanced young men with great qualities of head and heart. In our present times, the parents, in their ambition to make their children great, confine them in so-called highly sophisticated schools, far removed from the ordinary natural surroundings of their native place. They imbibe elitism and become strangers to the fellow human beings below their rank. In ancient India, Kings sent their children for education to the ashramas, where they imbibed the virtues of simplicity, plain living, magnanimity, comradeship, and so on, far removed from the palace pleasures, pomp, and pride. They thus saved the future kings from becoming alien to the commoners. In a democracy, education should be such that the learned should not lose touch with the common man. In the Ramayana, a glance at the education of the children of kings will reveal to us how they are more fitted to serve the people than to lord it over them. Lord Rama performs Ashwamedha Yaga. It is a sign of supremacy over all the world. Towards the end of the yaga, they release a horse to wander freely. Soldiers guard the horse as it wanders throughout the world. A king or prince who captures the horse and ties it will have to face the anger of the performer of the yaga. When Lord Rama performs the yaga, no king dares to capture the horse. It will be just a cakewalk for the success of the yaga. But a wonder happens. As the horse moves about the ashram of Valmiki, the tender lads, Lava and Kusa, capture the horse released by Rama. It is a challenge to the supremacy of Rama. The soldiers accompany the horse are easily defeated by the lads. Rama sends his brothers Satrugna and Bharata and Lakshmana one after another. They too are defeated. Next Hanuman is sent. Lava and Kusa do not rain arrows at Hanuman. He cannot be bound by arrows. They know very well how to bind the great hero Hanuman. They sing in a melodious tone the glory of Rama and chant his name in a rapturous way. Hanuman loses himself in the joy. He passes into a trance. The inmates of the ashram also join the twins in the singing and chanting. News reaches Rama that Hanuman too is not able to subdue the boys, so Rama himself rushes to the spot. He is amazed at the sight of the brilliant boys radiating beauty and valor. Rama looks at the boys with tenderness and asks them to surrender the horse, but the boys challenge him to a fight. He has a feeling to gather the lads into his arms, embrace them and kiss them. But, being provoked, Rama unwillingly twangs his bow. Valmiki in his meditation is startled by the sound. He rushes to the spot and sees Rama in all brilliance. He, with an upsurge of emotion in his heart, accosts Rama with folded hands. Rama prostrates himself before the great Rishi, and the Rishi lifts Rama and in great devotional fervour sings in praise of his beauty, valour and virtue. He in great joy introduces Rama to his sons and says thus, "My Lord Rama, these two lads are your sons. You may be pleased to know that these lads wish to meet their father as heroes in an impressive way. They are worthy of you in every respect. Their motive in capturing the horse is to make you grace this ashrama with your presence and witness their powers and martial skills. I have taught them all the Vedas and Shastras. They are well versed in the sacred law. They have also become experts in music. They sing the Ramayana to the delight of one and all. Their education has made them all-round personalities. They can subdue the enemies. They can charm everyone with their accomplishments in art, dance, and music. To crown all, they have developed good character which can ensure a proper use of their knowledge, skills, talents, and wisdom. Please take these lads of yours to your bosom. The citizens of Ayodhya have long been appealing to you to revoke your sentence on your chaste, pious, and virtuous wife. Wherever she may be, her thoughts are with you." Rama is visibly moved and touched by the affectionate words of Valmiki. Rama's brothers and Hanuman appear there by the side of Rama. The two lads rush to the embrace of Lakshmana, Bharata, and Satrugna after extricating themselves from the warm and tight embrace of their father. They have the culture and courtesy to tell the following words to their uncles Lakshmana, Bharata and Shatrugna. My dear uncles, we are very happy to experience your skills in fighting. Somehow you could not put your heart in fight, and you did not have the heart to hurt us in whom you see the resemblance of Rama and Sita. You would rather gracefully acknowledge defeat than cruelly inflict injury on the lads. We thank you for your tenderness, affection and nobility. The uncles experience great joy in hearing these words and praise Valmiki as a good educator. Next, the twins go to Hanuman and pay their respects to him. They say to him, O great devotee of Rama, pardon us for binding you. Who can bind you with weapons? We are proud that we are able to bind you with Ramanama. The twins sing melodiously the story of Rama and enrapture the gathering. All feel intoxicated with melody. The people feel great joy that Rama has been restored to his dear ones. There is triumphal march to Ayodhya. Rama has ingratiated himself with one and all by his righteous rule. The word Ramarajya has become a synonym to a good benevolent ruler under which everyone is happy, enjoying peace, plenty and freedom. During Ramarajya, the things that are extinct are the disgruntled politicians and their mischief, the scramble for political power, poverty and unemployment, advertisement to cover up want in worth, and arrogance passing for achievement. Perhaps Gandhiji had these 5 in his mind when he spoke of Ramarajyam. We conclude this lesson with the following words of Pope. For forms of government let fools contest. Whatever is best administered is best. That was the end of lesson 15. Thank you for watching, and please click like, share and subscribe. And I hope to see you in my next video when I'll be reading lesson 16. Thank you. Bye.